This video is about how to implement practice saving in your levels. And if you don't know what that is, and you shouldn't because I made it up yesterday, it's basically the setup that lets you go into practice mode. And when you exit practice mode, it brings you back to the checkpoint you were at. I think it's really important that this becomes a standard for hard platform levels in the future. With a normal hard level, you'd have to go through a practice run before you even started, but with this, you can practice as you're playing the level, and that's really a time saver. So this setup works because of a few different mechanics combined together. The first one is these item persist triggers, which are probably a lot stronger than you think they are. They will retain a variable as long as you don't exit the level entirely. Even if you exit practice mode and have to restart from the beginning, they'll keep their variable. Or even if you beat the whole level and hit the restart button, they'll keep their variable. The other mechanic this setup takes advantage of is this loop here that checks if you're in practice mode. And it does that by checking if you died with this on death trigger, and then if you didn't respawn at one of the checkpoints that's already in the level. So that would mean you had to respawn at a practice checkpoint, and thus you'd be in practice mode. This whole setup is uploaded in a level that you can copy, and I put the code for that in the description. So now I'll go step by step in how you can set this up in your own level just through the copyable. First, you're going to want to go and save the entire thing as a custom object. So you just select all of it, hit the plus button. So this is my example level. The first thing you're going to want to do when you get in here is just paste the custom object that you just made. Then you want to go into free move and snap and align it with the grid. And the next thing you need to do is make sure all of these triggers over here are behind the spawn line, so they will all activate immediately. After that, you should move this spawn trigger that has 102 on it over to where the player spawns, which I have as the star. So as soon as you spawn, you should be directly inside of it. I'll just get rid of these spikes that I used to showcase it. And then the text. And then now we can move on to actually placing the checkpoints. So the first two are already set up for you, so you can just place these wherever. And I'll just drag the end over. Alright. In order to make another checkpoint, what you have to do is copy this, go into settings, and then build helper. And then all you have to do is go into the pickup trigger, increase this to the number that the checkpoint is, and then do the same thing for the instant count trigger. So this would be the third checkpoint, so you make it 3. So let's test it out. You can get the first checkpoint, everything respawns fine, but if you go into practice mode and then exit practice, you'll be back at checkpoint 1. So then when you get to the next checkpoint, you can do the same thing. And once the game realizes you're in practice mode, I've set it up so it won't let you collect any more checkpoints or beat the level. So with this, you won't be able to skip parts of the level in practice mode. And if you exit, you'll go right back to checkpoint 2 and be able to pick it up again. So now I'm just going to mention a few important things about the setup that you should probably know if you're working with it. First is when you make the end, you have to also trigger these item persist triggers that disable the counts that were set to persist in. Because if you don't do that, then when you hit the restart button at the end level screen, it would just send you back to the third checkpoint instead of actually restarting the level. Another thing is that you need to make sure you use these spawn triggers that activate the checkpoints instead of just being able to activate the checkpoints on their own. Because these spawn triggers are tied to the practice mode detector, and if it detects you're in practice mode, then it turns them off. And if that doesn't happen, then you would be able to just beat the level in practice mode, and when you exited, you'd be at the furthest checkpoint. And another thing is that if you beat a section when you're in practice mode, but you never respawn at a practice checkpoint, so you beat the whole thing in one go, but you're in practice mode, the system can't detect that, so it will still give you the next checkpoint. But that shouldn't really matter since you beat the section in one attempt anyway, so The last thing you need to remember is that you just can't use counts 10 and 11 or item IDs, because those are what makes this work. So if you're writing data to those, it's going to break everything. But yeah, if you have any more questions about how to set this up, just leave them in the comments. And my next tutorial will probably be about the Celeste binoculars that I had in GravLab. Yeah, I think this is just a really useful feature that every hard level needs to have from now on.